Again, thanks so much for joining. My name is Brian Taylor with the North-South Rivers Watershed Association, and I'll be talking a little about some geocaching, and if there's time, I can do a little bit of animal tracking towards the end. So I'll go ahead and pass it off to Chris for a moment, and so yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Awesome, thanks, Brian. It really has been such an amazing opportunity to partner. Unfortunately, Doug couldn't join us for this last one. He's actually teaching a program, but it's been such an awesome opportunity. Oh, and I should go back and Clean Harbor, our sponsors have been just great. Clean Harbor has continued to sponsor this program, and also our Mass Cultural Councils. And so we're still, I just got a notification today that Scituate supported us, the Scituate Cultural Council. And so the dollars that we receive from these organizations really help support all three of us and help bring continued programming like this to the South Shore. And if you haven't had a chance to donate, we've hit our goal, but we could always use more, especially right now. And I know, as you've heard Brian say before, although it's on the North and South Rivers website, the donations are split evenly amongst the three organizations. So the Science Center, North and South Rivers, and Mass Audubon. So we appreciate the support. You can text give to this number, and we'll also put the link in the chat function as well. So just keep an eye for that in just a few minutes. And then I know, Brian, you have another awesome programs coming up at the end of this month. Do you want to mention a little bit about the Gardening Green Expo?
Yes, this program happens year after year. Normally it's goes on at Kennedy Country Gardens, but this year obviously it's virtual, but we are having lots of great guest speakers. And to kick it off, it is actually Doug Tallamy, who is an entomologist, very renowned, and has lots of books that have been published about the subject. A great speaker and really interesting discussions that will come out of this. And so if you are interested, the registration is on our website. Again, it starts on March 22nd. It's free. Just go ahead and register it on northsouthrivers.org, and you'll see all the guest speakers that will be there and all the different projects and things like that. So really cool program. Definitely check it out if you're interested. If you found some interest in some of the more nature-oriented subjects that we talked about with this program, then Gardening Green is for you, because you are absolutely sure to find something that you'll be interested in.
Yeah, and it's a great variety. And what's really neat is that some of the programs are live and then some are recorded. And as they are recorded, I know that they're being posted and some are available to watch right now as well. So really cool program. All right, and so this weekend at the Science Center, we have some maple themed programming going on, also supported by our local cultural councils. On Saturday, we have a couple of webinars. One is by Jonathan James Perry and Leah Hopkins, talking about the indigenous process and the importance of maple sugaring to their culture. And then after that, it's followed by Louise Beaudry, and she's going to be talking about the science of maple sugaring. So that's on Saturday. And then on Sunday, we are doing guided maple walks starting at 11 o'clock. And every 20 minutes, we'll start a new one. There'll be stations set up in the woods. It's supposed to be a gorgeous weekend. Temperature is perfect for sap flowing. But it is by pre-registration only. So you can't just show up. And afterwards, families will also be able to take packets home with them to try some activities and experiments at home. And I will put the link in the chat function where you can sign up for these the various programs. So yeah, all right. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Brian.
Cool, thanks, Chris. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And I'll go ahead and start the presentation. Chris, is that coming through?
Yep, it's looking nice and clear over here.
Great, thank you. All right, once again, thanks for joining, everyone. So before I begin this one, I just want to give a quick shout out to a Winter Nature Challenge All-Star. I think Nancy Larson has participated in every single week's challenge, and this week was no exception. I got a few great river trip itineraries. Doug and I both did, but I think Nancy Larson, good job. You really planned a great river trip, and hopefully we'd see you out there this summer when you hit the river. If you didn't get a chance to watch last week's presentation about a guide to your very own river adventure, it's on our YouTube channel at the North South Rivers YouTube channel, so check it out there. So this week we'll talk about geocache at the start, and like I said, if I have any extra time, I can go through some quick animal track information. So basically giving folks a couple fun things to do while they're out there exploring the South Shore. So to start, if you are interested in going to places new or looking for different historical sites or places to fish or hike or paddle, nsrwa.org is a great resource. We have listings of all the different sites to go for any shell fishing, kayaking, canoeing, fishing, hikes, all that. Swimming in all the different sites throughout the South Shore area. So with detailed descriptions, plus a lot of historical information. So we can be a great resource. We want to be a great resource for you to go outside and connect with the outdoors and to see what the area has to offer. So, because of course, to the organization, the more people we get out there and get excited and connecting with their water, their land, their nature, the more likely they are to want to preserve and protect it for now and for the future. So we're always want to be a resource to encourage people to go out and explore. And if you have not gotten a map yet, feel free to stop by our office at 214 South Street, and there's a big bin of our free guide maps right there. So you can go ahead and grab one or two. All right. So geocaching, what is geocaching? I would say everyone, raise your hand if you've ever heard about geocaching before, but I can't see you. So I assume some of you have, maybe some of you haven't. It's the world's largest treasure hunt. So this goes along similar to what Chris was talking about the other week about the City Nature Challenge, which is a really cool naturalist-based biodiversity study on a large scale, which is really, really neat. This is sort of an older version of going out and hunting for treasure in local parks, preserves, open spaces, things like that. So it's a sort of a similar format, but it's not as in-depth when it comes to nature, but you can still learn a lot. It's basically the focus of this is getting out and exploring and looking for things. So it's very, very similar. And if you have downloaded the iNaturalist and City Nature Challenge, you should get this one too, because then when you're out in the woods, you can have a couple different activities to keep you busy. So the world's largest treasure hunt. Right now, chances are you are within a few hundred yards of a geocache and you probably don't even know it. From forests to cities, they are literally everywhere, and anyone can go searching for it. So it's an app on your phone, which I'll talk about in a little bit and how to get that. And but basically, geo means earth. Cache is both a hiding place and storage terminology. So earth hiding places in earth and using technology or finding something that has something stored in it is all part of geocaching, and it is a lot of fun. I was never really into this until lately when I have been running outdoor programs for the past couple of years, and this is a great way to provide some a fun technology-based activity to those who might not be as comfortable or as familiar with going out into the woods. It can also be a great activity if you're bringing out some family members or friends who aren't really that excited about going out into nature. This can give them something to, sort of like a mission or, a goal to try to find something. And it's really fun and anyone can do it. So I'll talk a little bit about it. Before we get into actually how to do it, basically geocaching started around in May of the year 2000. There is something called the Great Blue Switch, which is just sort of, there is no actual blue switch, but it's a figurative saying for what was known as the selective availability coverage of the Landsat, the satellite networks that we have orbiting the Earth. And what this meant is that they turned off the selective availability, which allowed civilians and businesses to use a very high accuracy navigation system. Of course, so at the time, it updated 24 satellites to allow to have greater accuracy in pinpointing certain locations. So of course, the way GPS works, or the global positioning systems, is that all you need is 3 satellites to what is known as triangulate a position. If you have 3 satellites orbiting a sphere, that can provide you with an XYZ, which can provide you with basically any location. The accuracy from these things that they have been putting out since this blue switch puts it at an accuracy of at least, it can pinpoint a location within 10 to 20 meters or better, at least 10 to 20 meters, which is pretty remarkable that a few bits of electronics floating around the planet can coordinate and zero in on one specific spot. And so there's a set of coordinates right there to give you an idea about what coordinates look like. A day after the switch, this switch happened in May of 2000, a computer coder thought it would be fun to play around with this new technology that was accessible by civilians. Before, it was only military use. And this person placed a box with like a log and like a sticker or something for fun, and posted it on an old internet forum for other, like-minded people who are interested in the new GPS technology, which was really starting to pick up speed then. And within 3 days, it was found. This is in Oregon. It was like in the woods of Oregon somewhere. Within 3 days, someone found it, wrote in the log, posted the picture on that same blog, and thus began the hobby of geocaching. Since then, GPS enthusiasts began, trying different technology and relaying different messages and communicating online, and it just snowballed into what is now over roughly 3 million geocaches and 7 million active geocaches right now globally. So it's all over the world. And it's really cool because it can help you in traveling to learning new places, looking for going to more obscure places, but also you can learn information about specific sites along the way. So why do it? You stay active. You get off the couch, head out, explore new places. It adds to an outdoor adventure. It's like a fun goal. It's like a mission. And a lot of the areas around the South Shore have a lot of caches that you can find. It's great for any age. You can learn new facts about places. It's mentally and physically challenging because some of the caches involve solving riddles or completing a puzzle. And it's just a fun, stress-free outdoor activity, which is incredibly important, especially now. It's very simple to get started. All you need is a phone. You can visit geocache.com online and set up a free account, and then you can just download the app on your phone and then just go ahead and find your first cache. I think if I remember correctly, the first question that it asks once you set up your free account is what's your zip code, because then it will automatically zero you in. And if I remember correctly, as soon as I hit submit for my the zip code, it zeroed me in on a nearest cache, like the nearest cache near me, and it kind of helps you get started. It talks you through how to use it. But it's very, very user friendly. It's really, really simple. So once you download it, like I said, it's free. You'll see a little map. It's sort of like a Google map that has all the different points on there, and you can just click on one, and it'll give you a hint. It will tell you how far away you are from it, and then you go find it. Now, I'll talk a little bit about on the next couple slides about how that actually works. But once you find it, then you can sign the log. You'll find this via little box, sign the log, and then move on to the next one. I say so. There's this lingo that geocachers use. It's called ground speak, and they have all these different words and terminology for different things that you'll learn. And so one of them is muggles, which is a term that we're familiar with through Harry Potter. And that of course, means someone who is not familiar or doesn't practice the art of geocaching, someone who might not understand. So they say, watch out for muggles, because if you have worked really hard to find a cache which are very well hidden, you don't want somebody else who might tamper with it or take it or steal it, because they're not part of the community. So that rarely happens, but you don't want to advertise when you find a really cool cache that you've been working on and solving a puzzle, because you want others to go through that process too. That's half the fun. So watch out for those muggles out there. And a lot of the caches will have items in them. If you take an item, which you can, they ask that you leave an item of equal or greater value. We can talk a little bit more about that. So I'm not due to copyright. I'm not posting a mapped image of the actual geocache website, but it looks just like this. And I just put a couple of dots in where some actual caches are. Norris Reservation has 5. Actually, I think one of those is a double. When you find, so some caches are called multi-caches, and if you find one, in it will have clues to find another one that is part of it that might be further away. So and actually in the Cornhill Woodland, there's like 8 of them that are hidden. And I took a group there a few weeks ago, and we were able to find like 5 of them. A few of them are really, really, really challenging. And so when you when you bring up your app to start looking for them and you pull it up, you'll see a lot of different things in there in terms of the challenge, how difficult it is to find this one. You'll see things like the coordinates. So maybe you want to really challenge yourself and you don't want to use the actual GPS. You want to try to navigate it via the coordinates, maybe on, plotting or, map and compass navigation, which is pretty cool. Or there are some riddles that you can solve too. So you don't have to, it won't pinpoint you directly to it. But even if you do use your GPS, that it won't put you directly standing on it. You might have to search around based on the clues or based on the name of the cache. So, but there's several in there, and so this is sort of what it looks like. And of course, with the GPS, you'll see where you are in relation to it, with a certain amount of accuracy. And so it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So sometimes, inside of one, some of them can be big. Like when you look at an individual, if you're looking for a certain one, it will have things like the difficulty. It'll also have things like the size of it. There could be like a micro cache or a macro one. We'll talk about that. And it can have all sorts of different things in there. But one thing that they all have is a log, a finder's log. And sometimes it's just a tiny little scroll of paper, or sometimes it's an actual like memo pad. And then you can look back. Most of the times they will keep and preserve the ones that have been there for years and years and years. So maybe you knew of a friend or a family member that went and looked for one many, many years ago, 5-10 years ago. You could potentially find where they found it and find their name and where they signed it from a long, long time ago. A lot of times people might use different, code names or something like that. And they can be full of just random items. The kids, this is the best part. It's like treasure hunting. And the rule is if you want to take an item, just make sure that you replace it with something of equal or greater value. So don't be a cache scavenger. Don't go out there and raid them and not put anything back. That's no fun. So take a piece, leave a piece. There's also things now called travel bugs, which are an item that might have a little tag on it or a note on it. This is one of them. I've seen this a couple times, but also I've seen like a handwritten note too. So there's a number there. This one is all 2s. Some of the items will have different numbers, which then you can go onto the geocache website and you can actually log that you saw that particular item. So this tag might be attached to something, and it will then log it that you found it, but also you can see where that item has been. So these are things that they want you to take and then put in a different cache somewhere else. All right, so here's one that I found not too long ago. And so this is what's called a travel bug, or a trackable is also what they call them. And this is Mikey the Painted Mutant Turtle. And so I found it a few weeks ago, and then I was just curious, and I looked online and realized that this thing has traveled 425 miles through Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, and and Massachusetts. And interestingly enough, it's actually en route to Michigan now, which is my home state. So I was actually kind of like, oh, that's a coincidence. But anyway, so it's kind of fun. Sometimes you can see different things, and it adds another little element of fun to it. So if that's something that you want to do, and you might find it trackable, feel free to. This one, the tag is like that square with the geocache logo on it, and that that little tag has the number on the back of it. So it's pretty cool. And you can go online and you can, if you found one of the checkables, you can go online and see where it's been. It's pretty cool. There's several methods to go geocaching. For one, GPS coordinates is probably the easiest. You can either, if you have an older GPS unit and you want to challenge yourself, you can go that, or the similar to like maps on a phone. It will guide you towards a close relative location within 5 to 10 yards away, and it'll tell you how accurate it is, and how far away you are from it. And so through the Geocache Map app, there's also, each location has the actual coordinates that you can use too. There's a riddle that will go along with it. And sometimes there's a riddle, and also there's usually a hint that you can decode too. So the hint for a particular one that is in, I think this one was in the north. I think this was in, no, this one actually is a hint from one that is near the Marshfield canoe launch. So in the Marshfield town forest. So that hint is right there. And then you can see on the right, a little decryption key about how to decode. So the letters above equal the letter below. So anyway, I'll give you a couple more seconds if you're actually trying to decode the start of it right now. But for the sake of time, I'll progress forward right now. You can see decoding this. It's the hint is under a rock at the end of a fallen tree. So hints will be like that. A lot of times, they'll be pretty tricky, or the hint might be a riddle that you have to think about. And so, the geocaches are not just sitting out in the open. They're hidden. They don't want to look like a piece of trash or something. They want to stay hidden. They want to stay protected, and they want to be tough to find, because that's half the fun. That's part of the challenge. So here's a couple of what they look like. A lot of times they'll have like, this is geocache on there. And they'll be sealed so that they're waterproof and it's all contained so things don't, become trash, because that's obviously, something that we don't want to have happen. There's a micro one. You can see it's just a tiny little like keychain. There is one in Cornhill Woodlands that's like, it's just like a tiny, it's like smaller than a film canister, just within a tree, and all it has is just a little scroll of paper with all the signatures on it. So if you find that one, you'll see my name in there. Or like a little box with a container in there. This one's obviously, it's supposed to resemble a bird box. I think this one's actually, I don't know how I feel about this one, because a bird might want to go in there, and there's a geocache inside where it might want to build a nest. So or a tiny little, sometimes you'll see one that's like a magnetic thing stuck to a sign. This one is actually it's a bolt, and it has a little bit of paper in there, so kind of neat. Right on a guardrail of a road there. So or this one, you can see it's like a little camouflage box within there, like a little dry box. But they're scattered throughout. And a question might be, what if I want to make my own geocache? And you can do that. There are a few steps that you have to go through to make sure that it's okay, but you can make your own and then log it on the geocache website, and it will become an official one, and you'll be credited to starting it. However, it has to be at least 530 feet away from any other one. And there's a certain set of criteria that you can go through, a checklist that they have to make sure that it's not on private property, not at a place that has too many. Check with your local, some parks and preserves have their own. So the town of Norwell, I think, actually manages a couple of their own in the Jacobs Pond Conservation Area, if I remember correctly, or there might be a group of volunteers that manage them. Some parks, state parks and things will monitor and regulate their own, so that way they don't have new ones popping up all over the place. And so and it definitely can't be on, if it's on private, it can't be on private property or anything like that. So there's a few checklists to go through if you want to make your own, but there are plenty out there. You really don't need to make your own anymore. And they're it's pretty fun. I'm not gonna lie. So the challenge of the week for this week is to go geocaching. Download the app, sign up for a free account. So the account is free, and it's free to do it. You'll notice though, when you have a free account, that there are a couple like geocaches. Normally, I think the little things are green. There might be a couple gold color ones too. Those might be some of the multi-caches or some special ones. In which case, if you want to become, I think it's like a premium membership. I've got it. It's like, I think it's like $5 a month or something like that. I usually get it for the warmer months when I'm doing it more often, and and that will give you access to a few extra, but you by no means do you have to do that. You can just keep it at the basic membership, and it's totally fine. So the challenge of the week: get it, download the free app. Go out there. I have, in the past few weeks when I've been taking groups out there, put a couple of our watershed stickers in them. The number one challenge is to just go out and do it. A bonus challenge is, if you find one of these stickers, take a picture of it and send it to me. You also might see my name in the log. Or you can, while you're going to pick up your free guide map from the office, we've also put a stack of our stickers, our bumper stickers, in there too. They're small. Go ahead and take a couple. Maybe you want to put one in your car. That'd be awesome. Also, if you want, you can take one, take a few, and then if you find a geocache that doesn't have a sticker in it, and a lot of them won't because I've only gotten to a few of them, you can put the sticker in there. It would be pretty cool. And so, like I said, I've also written NSOWA in a couple of the logs. If you find one of those, I'm not going to tell you where, but maybe you'll find one. Just take a picture of it and send it to me. And or you can just say that you found it. You don't have to take a picture. So also, another part of the challenge, if you want, try to locate four of them. Or at least I put at least 70% of the caches in one park or preserve. Like I said, North Reservation has, I think, 5, and Cornhill Woodland has, most of the preserves around here will have a few. So maybe try to see if you can find as many as you can in one of those locations, because you're there. And once you find one, it can just guide you to the next one. If you do want to take any pictures or write a little story about your adventures, so feel free to send it to me. We'd be happy to post it on our social media. And just show people that that you're getting outside and you're trying this. It's really fun. It's very, very simple. It's free for the basic membership, and it might not. For me, I wasn't really into it as much before, but once you do it, it's actually a lot of fun, and especially. Like I said, if you have like a group of kids or a family, or you want to organize a little, a small get together with some friends, it can actually be pretty fun. And everyone, everyone can take turns trying to find one, or some of the riddles can be challenging, or some of the hiding spots are really, really tough to find. There was one where the hint was it was some riddle, and it ended up being in the stump that had bark and moss that was placed over it. So it took a little bit of solving this riddle, and then actually going into the hiding spot and looking a little bit further. They're usually not in plain sight. But the main thing is obviously be respectful. Most of the caches aren't going to be having you trek through any sensitive areas, wetlands or anything like that. Most of them are pretty carefully placed in that you're not going to be disturbing anything. Some of the caches are a little bit off trail. So I will say that if you are heading out into the woods in any time, obviously watch your step, but especially in the spring and summer and into fall, watch out, because there's a lot of things that might be trying to nest on the ground, or things that are getting active that we definitely don't want to step on. So, from a leave no trace standpoint, we want to really minimize our time walking on, on untraveled surfaces or non-durable surfaces that the trails aren't on. But like I said, most of the cache is going to be very near the trail anyway. There are a few that are way off, but just be really careful. We definitely don't want to be stepping on any ovenbirds, okay? Because their nests are impossible to find. And we definitely, if you're walking through the woods and you see all of a sudden a small little bird fly out from by your feet, stop and look, and because chances are there might be a little ovenbird nest there. They're ground nesters, which is definitely very hard to see. So, all right. So that's geocaching. I can talk a little bit about animal tracking if you're out there in the woods. Besides this, animal tracking is another really cool thing to do. Now, it's fantastic when there's snow on the ground, but if you can look for tracking, tracks anytime, but it's not just tracks. And so is actually before I talk about that, does anyone have any questions really quick? Before I begin, I don't know if there's anyone that I don't know if I can see if there's any. Let's see. I see it. Okay, there's a couple. I'm trying to go through. Chris, do you see any questions in here?
Yes, just someone mentioned that the website is geocaching.com. So I posted that into the chat feature. Mm-hmm. And Molly said that she had fun geocaching with you.
Awesome. Oh, awesome. Oh, yes. Thanks, Molly. That was a lot of fun. Yeah. I think Molly found the first one of that day too. But fantastic. Yeah, it's great. It's a lot of fun. It really is. And so try it out. And if it's not for you, no worries. It's totally free. And hey, it gets challenge you to go to new places, and it can really be a great way of discovering new parks or new places in and around your hometown. Some of the geocaches are placed in areas that encourage you to find something really, really cool. One of the caches in Cornhill Woodland was near a tree that had giant shelf fungus growing off of it that I wouldn't have seen because it was kind of behind where you normally would be looking. So anyway, go out there and check it out. And if you find something cool, always feel free to share it with and post on our Facebook page. We love to see people going out and enjoying the outdoors around our watershed. So,
and Brian, do you have a question? Someone's asking if established geocaches occasionally move.
They do, but very rarely. It's the trackables that will move from site to site, and so I have only seen like one instance where there was a cache that was in the crook of a tree. A lot of times people will put them like right between where two trunks go out of one another, and it was right in the middle. One of the trunks had fallen down, so that one was moved nearby, but typically not. And the thing is, it's all real time. So if someone notices or can't find a cache, or the cache is in a different place than what like the description or the hint said on the description of that particular cache, you can change that right away and say like, hey, this cache has moved to these coordinates, or you'll see if there's anything that has happened to one. People are usually pretty keen to inform others that this one might not be where it's supposed to be, or things like that. So absolutely. It very rarely does one move, but if it does, you'll usually know about it, so you're not just on a wild goose chase for a cache that isn't there. So good question. Good question.
All right, we have some more. Jill Johnston is raising her hand, so I'm going to allow her to talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you want to unmute yourself, Jill, you can and ask your question, or you can type it in the chat function, whatever is easier. And then while Jill is doing that, if she's going to ask a question, we also have a question. Are trackables supposed to move by a certain time frame?
I don't think so. That's a good question. I don't think so. Trackables have their own webpage on the geocache.com. And so, I don't think I think some of them actually might have like a goal, like it wants to travel a certain. I've only participated in a couple of them because I think it's a newer addition to geocaching, and I haven't, I've only done a few. If I remember, one of the ones that I did, that Mutant Turtle, I think the turtle wanted to travel like a certain amount of mileage, if I remember correctly. So that's actually a good question. I think some of them do have different goals, but I don't know if it's time oriented, but some of them definitely do. So if you find one, each trackable will have like its own page that has information about that one. So if you get one of those trackables or those travel bugs, you can find more found out more about it and about maybe where it wants to head next. Or I think one of them was like it wants to see all 50 states or something like that. So they actually could, they very well might. So it's a fun little creative little addition to an already fun little activity. So good question. Yeah, Jill, I don't think I can hear you. Maybe try typing it into the chat.
Yeah, I don't know if it was an accidental hand raise or not, but I know that if you travel overseas at all, a great fun thing is to see internationally where geocaching, where geocaches are located, and making that part of your adventure when you're in another country. It's great fun.
Definitely. Those are all great questions. I'll just talk a little bit very briefly about tracking because it's also a fun thing to do out there. And if you're here for the geocaching, you're probably interested in additional activities like you can do outside. Tracking is art and science of gathering. And if anyone has any other questions, feel free to put in the chat. And Chris, feel free to interrupt me at any point. So basically, animal tracking can be related to geocaching in that you're looking for something. You don't have to be looking for tracks. It can be any type of sign that an animal was there. Interpreting clues, working to locate wildlife, interpreting animal behavior. It's an ancient skill. Going out of the woods, hunter-gatherer society, they're hunting, they're looking for something, just like geocaching. Animal tracking is something fun that anyone can do as well when they're out in an open space. There's lots to see. We see animal sign quite often, but we rarely use skills or ask the question to tell a broader story about the environment around us. So I'll just go through, this really quickly. Why go out and look for animal sign? Understand local wildlife. Sometimes you might see some wildlife that you had no idea was there. Discover popular animal routes and paths. It might increase your chances of seeing a particular animal that you're looking for. Rare, hard to find animals, like for example, there are box turtles around in the South Shore, and they're pretty rare, but if you do see one, you are incredibly lucky. And you can gain a broader perspective and understanding of the overall health of an ecosystem based on things that you can find, like indicator species, or Chris and I were just talking about vernal pools, we're talking about obligate species. So finding out what species are incredibly important, things that are rare, or things that indicate the overall health of an ecosystem are really cool to see. Just like geocaching, looking for animal sign can enhance a walk or a hike in an area. Great survival or hunting, skills in being able to look for things. Animals need food, water, and shelter. And so basically, if you're looking for areas that have those, you might increase your chance of finding animals that also need those. Plus, it's just plain fun to be a nature detective. There's many different types. There's scat, which is animal droppings. There's pellets, like from an owl, most birds of prey actually produce what's called a cast. It's just owls have the bones in there. Roots, tunnels. The picture on there is a deer trail. You'll see this all the time when you're looking for your geocaches. A lot of times you will see little paths where deer or certain types of rodents like to go. I would, obviously the snow is mostly gone now, but when it's snowy, that's a great time to go out too, because you can see, especially fresh snow overnight, you can see a lot of the activity that's around. Looking for burrows, beds, den, nests. Sometimes you can see where deer like to bed down. They have a nice little kind of rounded oval shape bed. They usually all kind of bed together. So sometimes you can identify those if you look carefully in a sort of some leaf, detritus sort of thing. Marks on trees. A lot of animals like to leave marks on trees by rubbing or scraping or clawing. Of course, tracks in mud or snow. Broken branches is great. And top sign versus bottom sign is basically not just looking at on the ground, but looking above the ground, ankle, knee height, and seeing different tunnels and things like that. So, hi, scat. She didn't expect to see this picture come up. So scat also tells a story about what was once there. And so this is black bear scat right here. Tube-shaped dog, raccoon, skunk, possum, wolverine. And of course bear. So it's a great, it's an incredible learning tool especially when you're out in in a wild, open space, further out someplace, and you find something like this because it can tell a lot about the diet and things like that. Anyway, yeah. Pill-shaped scat. This is white-tailed deer. Rabbit and deer scat are often confused, but deer is smooth, whereas rabbit is going to be rough around the edges. And a lot of times, scat can harbor a whole little micro ecosystem of its own. These are common buckeyes that are, and a dung beetle that are munching on some heavy scat. So a lot of butterflies love the moisture on the scat. All right. So tracks is probably the most common hoof, foot, hoof, paw imprints. This shows the presence of an animal, obviously, but also shows the direction of movement, and also it can show the speed. It can show a little bit about how that animal's moving, how fast it was, how it was moving. Was it jumping? Was it bounding? Things like that. So give you little clues about its behavior. Here's coyote. You see right away, but if you look closely, you can also see that there are little bird tracks in here as well. That's pretty cool. There's a lot of different things that you can have. I've got from Maine Fish and Wildlife, just a simple pocket card that has all these different, I don't know if I'm pulling this up. If you're looking at my little face box, you can see it's this tiny little card that's got most of the common species that we could find. Of course, this is Maine, but a lot of these species we'll find here too. So there's a lot of different guides that you can get. But basically start by counting toes. That's the easiest way. If you see a track, count the toes, and that can lead you to a good indicator about what type of species it might be. Then note the size of it. A lot of the cards will have like little rulers on the end, so you can get a sense of the size of it. When you look at different tracks, you can get a sense of, was it walking, was it trotting, was it galloping, bounding, or hopping? And it can if you find tracks that are similar to one another, like a fox and a coyote are very similar, but how they walk can be a little bit different. A lot of the guides will help you figure out, identifying a species based on its movement. And so a lot of the guides will also have differentiations between front and hind patterns. Some animals have differences in sizes between their front and hind paws. The raccoons do. Even things like bobcats do as well. And so noting the size difference between them. And then you can sort of put together sort of how they were walking with that little graphic down below. And also the difference between like right and left, or the difference between front and back to get a sense of how it was moving. It's pretty neat little animal, little forensics, tracking forensics activity. So obviously this is snow. I'm a little late to show this one, but you can see an animal was sort of hopping, but also you can see that this animal had a tail that was dragging as it continued. A few weeks ago, and I kicked myself for not taking a picture, but I was hiking in a preserve in Plymouth, and that had it was an animal that had like little hops like this, but then the footprints went away, and it was like a little slide. And I hadn't seen anything like that before. It was like the animal slid on its belly like a penguin would. And I looked it up online, and sure enough, it was an otter. So I was, I had no idea. So it was pretty cool. Even if you don't have a guide, if you take like a picture of it or look for certain features like this, it can help you pinpoint. This is a field mouse, but it can help you kind of pinpoint what type of animal it was. All right. Tracks and various factors. Some factors that, the age of a track, the older it is, especially like, if it's in mud, over time, it could disappear over time. Weather can change one, like a fresh snowfall, but then it gets warm, that the detail are going to start to diminish. Mud is good, snow is good, clay is great, sand doesn't last that long. And also if there's other disturbances, like if there's a lot of people walking or nearby dogs have this tendency to sniff and follow tracks, they might influence or, ruin a track. So you can see a bounding weasel track going there to a little den, looks like. So these are great to look for. You can find a lot of paths in the woods. Many animals will use the same paths every day. Some animals will actually leave scat on the path as they go. And believe it or not, some birds of prey can actually, scientists say that they can use, a lot of ornithologists say that some birds can use, they can sense UV light to track the paths of rodents, because rodents will urinate as they go, which can show up in an ultraviolet spectrum. So, so of course, animals are looking for animal sign as well. Certain predators will look for animal sign as well. So I just had to, this is a picture that was taken by the National Park Service, which is, you can just see little tracks of like a rodent going there in the snow, and then they stop, and then you can see these like little, at the top of the picture, these little streak patterns. Those are wing strikes of a raptor that grabbed that rodent and took off with it. So you never know what you might see. Tips for tracking: be patient. Just like geocaching, when you're out there, be patient. You might not find it right away. You might not find that one move. If you don't, move on to the next one, but be patient when it comes to tracking. The more you do it, the better you are to get an eye for things, not just for tracks, but also looking for any type of sign, paths of travel, routes, stems, things like that. Get low. You're taller than most animals, and so you might not see the tunnels that they go through. There are a lot of deer paths throughout most of the South Shore area parks and preserves. And when you get to their level, all of a sudden you can see the tunnels that they go through. You know, they're not going to be dodging branches and stuff like we would. They're going to be very smooth and quick going through the woods. So a lot of times, if you look carefully, you can see those paths of travel. Look in all directions, not just on the ground. There's, birds are always around too. Look for nests, things like that. Remember, animals need food, water, shelter. So when you're around those places, the better chances you are to finding an animal or tracks as well. Wet or muddy places where tracks can be left and found. Avoid heavily trafficked areas, because those are the areas that, some animals don't want to be in paths that have lots of people smell on them, things like that. Winter and snow can make for excellent tracking conditions, but obviously it's starting to get warm, so that might not apply for too much longer, but still, you don't need snow to go tracking. You can track anytime. And look carefully. Well, especially now is still good because a lot of the trees don't have leaves on them yet, so you can still get a good depth into the woods, and it can still a lot of trails and animal sign is more exposed now than when everything starts to leaf out. Then it can kind of conceal some of those areas. So, but look carefully. Usually, when there's one print, there are more. If you're looking for a fun project, you could do a cast mold where you there's different ways that you can have an animal track and then put like some plaster in there, and then you have a little cast of it, and then you can remold that several times. And so a lot of information online if you're interested in something like that of how to do that. You can even do it at home. You can do it with your handprint, or play an animal tracking game where you can you can play a tracking game. If you have a group of kids, you can have them track one another, like walk around in a sandy or muddy area and have one person has a particular type of shoes and then they walk somewhere and hide or something. And then you try to follow their footprints, things like that. There's a lot of different ways you can do a fun game like that, but also have it relate to, survival, being animals in the woods, tracking, things like that. So a couple quick common things for around here. Deer tracks, they have the narrow toes. So there's a little picture up in the top right corner. The narrow toes are pointing forward. And the deeper the front of the tracks will usually sink deeper, just like when we walk, our toes usually push in more. That is their direction travel. The front narrow part is going to be deeper. That's the direction that they're pointing. It can be confusing. When you see one, you see a track and you don't quite, it's hard to tell which way they're going. So with that picture, the top is the direction travel. That's facing forward. Deer, obviously, there's going to be more tracks. They love to go through the tunnel in the woods. And a lot of times if there's like a log over their path, you'll see where like a lot of the bark might be missing on that particular top where they're always jumping across, which is pretty cool. They love to munch on like cedar, things like that. So you might find some trees that are missing their lower branches because the deer are chomping on them. And so of course, where you'll see deer tracks, you'll see deer scat as well. And also they love to rub on trees. And I think I have a picture, yeah, right here. So you can see where they will rub when they're in rut. The males are rubbing those itchy antlers and they'll multiple deer will visit the same one because they'll try to mark the territories too. So domestic dog versus coyote or fox is another common question. Domesticated dogs usually they're very variable in sizes. They can be very small prints to up to like 5 inches in length, whereas coyote and fox are typically around 2 to 2.5 in terms of their length of their paw print. Coyotes and foxes will have a narrower paw profile with nails pointing forward or if not inward, whereas domestic dogs, since domestic dogs are walking on usually a hard surface, concrete, wood, things like that, their paw prints are a little bit more splayed out and their nails are going to be facing more outward. Since coyotes and foxes are always on sort of a forest floor or soft terrain, they have not evolved to kind of splay out their paws are going to be a lot more tight. It's a lot tighter of a print with the nails pointing forward or inward. Coyote scat commonly contains fur and can have evidence of bones, fruit, berries, things like that, in a whole range of color. Fox scat usually we all know what dog scat looks like. It's not going to have a lot of different types of berries in there unless there's just a wild dog out there. But fox scat will also contain fur. It'll contain pretty much all that, but also fox will also have a lot of undigested fruit in there. And fox love to poop on prominent objects to mark their territories, like rocks or logs, things like that. So all right. That is it. If anyone has any questions about any of the topics, whether it's geocaching or animal tracking, feel free to leave a comment or put your question in the chat. I hope that these are a couple things for anyone to do to go out if you're looking to add some excitement out on the trail, or you're looking for an activity to do with some family members who might not be that excited or interested in going out in the woods. There's lots to do, and there's lots of ways to make it fun and exciting if you need something additional. Of course, I think that a nice walk in the woods is there's plenty to see, but there's a lot of other things to look for. And the more you go out, the more you'll see, the more you'll enjoy. And of course, the more you will connect with the natural world around you. And thus, you might be more likely to help want to protect and preserve and keep that area of your community that is important to you, because of course all these natural preserves, open spaces, parks, areas that are natural, forested, or prairie that are around us are equally as important for the wildlife that depend on them. And from a watersheds perspective, areas like that are very, very, very important within our watershed that we need, and they want to preserve and protect. So go out there, look for animal tracks, go geocaching, and connect and learn and experience, explore, and really have an adventure. And so thanks so much for listening. That once again, the challenge of the week: go geocaching. Try to find a few of those NSRW. There's only a couple out there. If you find one, you're lucky. There's a couple of those stickers out there. If not, grab a sticker from a couple stickers from our office and put them out there. Sign the log. And just have fun with it. It's really a lot of fun, especially now that it's getting warmer out there. I know a lot of us want to head out on the trail a little bit more. Now's the time to get started and get ready for it. So feel free to pop any questions that you have. Otherwise, thanks once again. Thanks so much for joining on our final one. I cannot believe it, Chris. It's the last one.
And it really has been fantastic, and continue to look for joint programming between all three organizations. I think one of the takeaways is that we just want to continue getting the residents of the South Shore outside, and we're stronger together. And so we are talking all about all different programmings that we can do together. And we are going to be doing some makeup walks as well from earlier for some of the ones that were canceled due to the weather.
Absolutely. Yep. More events to come as well. I know this, Kristen Science Center as well as the Watershed. We're really gearing up to have a very outdoor, adventure-based spring and summer. So certainly more events to come. And I know Chris and I were just talking about some co-led events that we would all three of the organizations would like to do. I know that we're talking with Doug Lowry and Matt Soderman as well, because these collaborations, these partnerships are very, very important now. And any time that we can share community members or put our resources together, it's just fantastic. So certainly something that we'd like to continue going forward as well. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you all again for joining us. And if you missed any of them, be sure to check out the North and South Rivers Watershed website. They're all there. Maybe, Brian, we can, when we send out the makeup walks, we can send the link to all the of all the recordings.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you all so much, and have a great week.
Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thanks, Chris.
Bye, Brian.
Bye.